I just arrived here in Italy with a parish group for Jubilation year 2025. And so, yeah, this is just going to be an entire series of videos just showing the things that we're going to be doing for the next 2 whole weeks. So, what you'd probably be seeing right now is just going to be stuff that we're doing.
On an 8-hour flight, it was very hard to get sleep due to the seat positions, along with the fact that we left at 4:30 p.m. and arrived at 1:15 a.m. in Rome, where it was 7:15 a.m., 6 hours ahead of here in the US. On each day, we always went to a different church to explore and usually have Mass in. While I did have a hard time staying awake at the moment, and while we had a long bus ride to sleep, I was way too excited to check out Italy, as my family heritage originates from the country. And I loved seeing the beautiful hills, along with half of them having small towns go literally down the hills.
So yeah, traveling to Italy on its own is already fun enough, but I'm actually on a pilgrimage here for a week and a half. So what is going to happen is over this video you are going to see my journey throughout almost all of Italy in those 10 days.
Our first stop on this pilgrimage was Cascia, a very hilly and mountainous area. I love the way the mountains look here. I'm serious, tell me these mountainsides don't inspire you in some way. As an artist, they inspired me because they had beautiful texture on them. The area was also home to Saint Rita of Cascia, the patron saint of hopeless causes, who made a huge trek from her village to this church at the top of the hill. For lunch, we went to Il Tortufo Ristorante, where we had our first 4-course meal made up of an antipasta, in this case meats and cheeses, a pasta, fettuccine with meat sauce, a meat dish, grilled pork with potatoes, and dessert, a tiramisu cake, along with having a red and a white wine, both of which I thoroughly enjoyed. Yeah, also the time for lunch in Italy is 1 p.m. and dinner is normally served at 8 p.m. Very different from here in the States. After lunch, we went to the convent where Saint Rita became a nun, and the basilica dedicated to her, which was beautiful to look at in terms of the architecture and the artworks within. And we had Mass inside there, which was a lot of fun. After the tour in Cascia, we rode to Assisi for dinner. At dinner, we were served the hotel's house wine, which I come to believe is a Chianti wine, which I loved and had 3 glasses of, no regrets. We were also served penne with mushroom sauce, which was delicious considering I don't usually like mushrooms. Wild boar with gravy and green beans, and tiramisu frozen pudding. Sorry, but I was too excited I forgot to take a picture of it. So yeah, we were all very well fed and went to bed very satisfied.
So, we are now on day 2. We're finally in Assisi, and we are going to be here for most of the day. But this morning when I woke up, I saw the most beautiful thing where the hilly town that we're going to of Assisi was perfectly outlined by the sunrise. It was the most beautiful thing that I had to take a picture of it. And while I don't think I've seen enough of Italy to say that the entire country is beautiful, I can already say it's going to be a wonderful time here. And once again, we're only on day 2. In all honesty, that in and of itself is extremely wonderful.
starting off the day, the hotel kind of surprisingly supplied us with a breakfast. It's actually surprising because in Italy, they don't really do breakfast. However, this did give me a chance to try a cappuccino, which they say don't order a cappuccino after noon in Italy. And honestly, I can take it or leave it, but I will still try this kind of coffee once a day here. We then went to the main town of Assisi, and I was immediately intrigued by the mountain-like city, which was literally built onto the hills. There, we went to the Basilica of St. Clare for Mass, followed by a tour of the city, ending with us arriving at the Basilica of St. Francis of Assisi, which has an upper and lower church. Along the way to the Basilica, there were many amazing sights that overlooked what's called the Panoramic Valley. And after the tour, we had Mass. And we held Mass at the same church where the Franciscan monks began their ministry. After Mass, we went to a more rural part of Assisi at a place called Dal Moro, where we were served a white wine and a red wine. And we were served assorted meats and cheeses with bread, fusilli pasta with mushrooms and sausage, roasted veal with mushrooms and onions, a salad, which is also a bit of a side dish for the third course, but also held at the end of the meal to help with digestion, and rocciata di Assisi for dessert.
My favorite place for this trip would probably have to be when we went to Cascia and Assisi. Not only did I like being on the countryside, watching all the hills of Italy, but I also enjoyed the history of the places that we went to, seeing St. Rita and her story, as well as St. Francis and St. Clare.
Afterwards, we had a 4-hour bus ride from Assisi to Venice, having a few stops to move around during the long trip. When we got to the Venice area, we then got onto a boat and went on our merry way to our hotel and restaurant. On the way, I noticed how beautiful the city is in the evening. And when we got to the part of Venice where our hotel was, I, no joke, found a KFC. Okay, so I know there's gotta be like a McDonald's and a Burger King in every country, but a KFC? I'm sorry, that's just ridiculous. At the restaurant called Trattoria Pavoletto, they had some house wine, which was a white wine that was served in a jug. I kid you not. Gotta say though, I think I'm becoming a fan of Italian white wines. And for dinner, we had spaghetti with black squid, which I kid you not was a lot more delicious than it sounds. Sea bass with vegetables, and flan for dessert, which was very good, or as they say in Italy, molto buono. And I know it's only been 2 days so far, but the food here has been very good, and I have not been disappointed yet.
Loud here, but we are currently on day 3. Living in Venice right now, it is actually pretty fun. There's not really much to it. It's the city on the water, but it's a fun place. It's definitely very cool to visit. And I gotta say, even though we're only 3 days into this 10-day jubilation trip, I'm already gotta say, I love visiting Italy. This has been one of the best things that I have ever been part of. Okay, that must be why. I don't know if you guys can see. That is all seagulls there. Anyway, yeah, Venice is looking cool so far. And I love the fact that it's one of the only places where you get around to other areas by boat or walking. and I'm actually kind of excited to see where we go today.
Once again, we were supplied breakfast by the hotel, and honestly, I ate like an American. That being probably more than I should. Yeah, we're very spoiled here in America. After breakfast, we went to the Basilica of St. Jeremiah and St. Lucy, the latter being the patron saint of spiritual eyesight, where we spent some time to pray. And afterwards, we went on a tour. At the City on the Water, we were split into two groups, which I would assume we would switch tomorrow. And my group went the way of the bridges. No joke, there were so many bridges we crossed that the group kept getting separated. And the city itself? Beautiful, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And the city has a lush, rich history. At the end of the tour, we arrived at St. Mark's Square, quite possibly at its busiest time of the year. Afterwards, we went to lunch at Ristorante Cantina Canaletto. With lunch, we were served a white wine and a red wine, both of which I thoroughly enjoyed. Strange, as I'm more of a fan of sweet wines, and the wines that we've had for our meals are definitely not sweet. And for lunch, we had tortellini with fondue cheese, eggplant parmesan, ooh, my favorite, and artisanal ice cream. Turned out to be a mandarin sorbetto. While here for only 3 days, I can safely say that Italian food, pure Italian food, is the best. I am not disappointed by any of the dishes here. After lunch, there was a brief period where we could walk around the city area. I had fun getting lost in the streets and taking in the sights, before being brought back down to earth to go to Mass. Mass was held in the crypt church of the Basilica of St. Mark, and much earlier than planned, which caught the whole group off guard, as something went wrong with scheduling at the church. But the Mass itself went perfectly, as always. Afterwards, we had some time to check out St. Mark's Square, where I explored around a bit and had a small cannoli for a friend. Before we all met back up at St. Mark's Bell Tower in front of the Basilica. We then went on a boat ride from St. Mark's Square, seeing some amazing sights along the way, like the Basilica of Santa Maria di Salud, or St. Mary, the Blessed Mother of Good Health. Now this next part was very heavy for me to try to put into this video, but it is very important for this journey and pilgrimage that we were a part of. From inside Santa Maria di Salud, we walked around for a bit and were allowed to sit down and pray at the altar. But for some reason, I felt terrified to sit and pray. But I heard a voice speak to me and asked me why I wasn't in prayer. I tried telling this voice about the hardships that I was dealing with in my personal life, my work life, just my entire life in general, but ultimately, I wasn't trying to convince the voice of why I shouldn't be praying. I was trying to trick myself into not praying. And this voice reminded me about God's love, which is more numerous than the drops of water in the sea. He's the one who gives chance after chance. He's the one who is always waiting for us to return to Him. And it gave me the courage to sit in front of the main altar and pray for what felt like an eternity. However, I do have a confession. I used the word pray, but more so, I was just there, just sitting down and taking in the silence. And ultimately, it made me feel better and more confident in myself than I ever felt during this trip, too. After this experience, we got back on the boat and went back to the hotel. For dinner, we went back to Trattoria Povoledo, where we were served a very delicious red house wine. Yeah, for Italy, house wines are very commonplace. And for dinner, we had lasagna with meat sauce, pork with potatoes, and tiramisu.
Okay, guys, we're currently on day 2 in Venice right now. And, good gosh, the city looks beautiful. You can actually see in the background here just the boats coming in and out of the area. And currently this is day 4 in total here in Italy. So far the journey has been, well, actually incredible. There's been so many churches that we visited in the last 4 days. Pretty sure we visited like 8 in that amount of time. And it blows my mind how beautiful these churches are. I literally cannot describe what it has been like for me inside these churches. There's so much beauty in the architecture and in the artworks like mosaics, frescoes, and there's just so much to these buildings. But yeah, and today we are going to have a very busy day on our hands, and I'm excited to bring a lot of it to you guys.
Okay, so today was a pretty big day and a very busy day too. Right after breakfast, we got onto a boat and went to the Venetian island of Murano. We went to the morning mass in Murano at the Basilica of Santa Maria e Donato, which was made by combining Roman and Byzantine architecture. But Murano is very cool because it is best known for its glasswork, which is what we checked out next. A glass shop, where we sat and saw a demonstration of how they make their glass figurines. And these figurines, I found out, could take place any time from a couple of minutes to days depending on their size. Afterwards, we got back onto the boat and went to Burano, where they have their own leaning tower. Yeah, we weren't going to Pisa at all for this trip, but Burano has a bell tower in its only church square that has some work being done, and so because of that, it's a leaning tower. We didn't go in there, but it was very cool to see. When we got to lunch, we had a red wine and a white wine, with us being served seafood lasagna, which might be my new favorite thing, seafood risotto, a salad side dish, branzino with calamari, and tiramisu again.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
And this one was finally a traditional tiramisu, along with being served espresso. And as always, the food was molto buono. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm giving this place too much credit. The food was delicioso. While it did rain after lunch, we were able to explore the town for a bit before getting back onto the boat and heading back to Venice. Afterwards, we did have some downtime, along with a prayer session, which, I'll be honest, I was a little late to because I lost track of time from napping. Yet, arriving late, it still felt renewing. We then went to dinner, again at Trattoria Povoledo. We had 2 different white wines, and I'll be honest, I enjoyed both. And we were served potato dumplings with seafood sauce called gnocchi, calamari with vegetables, montadone, which is a fruit bowl, and limoncello. Though I will admit, after dinner, my head did feel like it was spinning. Like, my sight was the same as when you're on a cruise ship and everything's going back and forth. Maybe it was my wine to water ratio. Maybe the fact that I've been watching the waters too much during our time in Venice. Maybe a lack of sleep. Or maybe it was also because we've been on boats so much these past 2 days. Who knows? I just know I gotta get to sleep early tonight.
So we are currently on day 5 on this pilgrimage journey. Sorry for the camera quality. And today is going to be a very long day, but we're leaving Venice today and we're heading off to another part of Italy for another very special day of prayer.
On top of the fact that half the group went on a boat ride last night, Venice at night, which they said was very beautiful, we all had to leave the hotel extremely early. Okay, not like 5 a.m. early, but still early, meaning we had to eat quickly for breakfast. Shelley from our group said, I really loved seeing Venice. There is nowhere else on earth like it. The beautiful churches and masses we experienced, as well as the fun tours. And sadly, we had to leave Venice to continue our pilgrimage. After a short boat ride, we were back on the bus again and going to Padua, praying along the way. Our tour of Padua started at the Church of St. Justino, which also held about half a dozen chapels to other Italian saints, each of which held beautiful sculptures that took my breath away. After that, we went to the Basilica of Sant'Antonio, the Church of St. Anthony of Padua, obviously the city's patron saint, which was beautiful to look at from within, as it's a Roman Gothic medieval church combining elements from all ancient churches in its construction. And we even had Mass there. When we went to lunch, the restaurant we were at was beautiful on the inside, with lovely interior colors and even some frescoes along the walls. And for lunch we had chicken salad with veggies and oil, so literally a chicken salad, pasta with peas and mushrooms, which was delicious, pork and veggies with potatoes, and tiramisu, oh my gosh, what a shock, along with being served a red and a white wine. However, I should note that I had a notebook with me for this trip where I wrote it in constantly so that I could remember everything. But at this point in the time, I seem to have been losing my mind a bit with the constant socializing, loud restaurants, and non-stop wine throughout. Afterwards, we had a nice walk back to the bus and went on the road again to Florence and Father Mattia's childhood town. About 3 hours later, and accidentally falling asleep during Rosary, we arrived in the Tuscany region, coming to the town of Empoli. Here, we were all hosted by members of the town. When we arrived, we were greeted almost literally with open arms. Well, Father Mattia definitely was. But everyone here was very nice, despite the fact that a lot of them didn't speak English, and they gave us refreshing drinks after the long bus ride. However, we didn't exactly have too much time to socialize, as we then went to their church for confession and reconciliation. And while I admit I hadn't been to confession in 7 years, it was somehow very easy for me. Afterwards, we had a buffet-style dinner and dessert, and everyone was happy and full at the end. And the place where I was stationed at was very lovely, with rock tile floors, bathrooms that doubled as showers, and a beautiful design on the outside. Now, I didn't get any pictures inside the place because, that would be rude, but it was very delightful to be there.
So this is currently day 6. I just spent the night in someone else's house, which actually was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It's definitely been an experience so far. And the town here is very beautiful. It really is. And can't wait to have you guys join us on this little trek.
So yeah, sleeping in someone else's house felt easier than sleeping at a hotel here, randomly enough. After a lovely light breakfast, which was mostly comprised of breads, as, once again, Italians don't really do breakfast, we then got on the bus to get on the road and go to Florence. Coming to Florence was very different from other cities. On the one hand, it's very hot in the Florentine region, with constant high humidity. But on the other hand, the city is so beautiful. But just be careful where you are. The older part of Florence, where we were at some points, is very traditional, and they don't like tourists very much. So, if you ever go to Florence, I repeat, do not act like a tourist when interacting with people. After a brief tour of the city, even admiring the art statues, we went to Mass at Cathedral de Santa Maria de Fiore, where it was a wonderful sight inside. After church, we all went our separate ways for lunch, with my parents and I finding other people from our group at a pizzeria, where for lunch we all had pizza, though there were other options for a meal. Personally, I had a blue cheese and ham pizza with a Chianti wine, which was heavy with nice tannins and smooth, but didn't exactly pair well with the pizza I had ordered. This was also the first time I actually saw a menu from an Italian restaurant. I should have known they did that, but kind of assumed they had set meals for each day. However, after lunch, I saw that things were now broken. Because the pizzas here have ruined all other pizzas! Or at least American pizzas. After lunch, I stopped for a gelati before everyone met back up to continue our tour of Florence. Now, while the main tour that we had in Florence had a lot of problems that were a little bit unavoidable, we did manage to fill up the time, and we then got back onto the bus to go to a lookout point in the area for a group photo. So, honestly, some of us didn't exactly get the memo, and we were then back on the road. We then went back to Empoli, where we had yet another 4-course meal served to us by our hosts, consisting of pasta with veggies, cingale, which is wild boar with sauce and black olives, with peas and sformato, turkey slices, and strawberries with 2 kinds of gelato. And, like usual, it was all very delicious. Honestly, I never had wild boar before, but it quickly became one of my new favorite meal choices.
Hey guys, what's going on? We're finally at day 7. Been here for an entire week. I'm kind of excited about this, because while this is coming to an end, sadly, very shortly, I say that, it's not going to end today. It's still got a couple more days to go, but even though I have to say goodbye to Italy in a couple days, I've loved my experience here. It has been so fulfilling for me. And I really don't know what else to say. There's been so much that I've been doing here, and while it hasn't exactly been as I thought it was going to be, I have enjoyed this pilgrimage and seeing Italy. And the biggest thing about it is this trip has made me actually want to live here. I'm not joking about that, guys. I actually do want to live here.
So, 1 week already gone. And this trip has been a lot different than I thought it was going to be. For one thing, I thought that we would be in a lot of different local houses for the majority of the trip. So, Immediately getting to a hotel was kind of a shock for me. Then, since this was called a pilgrimage, I assumed it would be like biblical ones, where we'd walk to the different cities, and not by bus. So, I was wrong on 2 accounts. But after another light breakfast, we were on the road again, leaving Empoli and bound for Siena. One of our members, Sue, says, "Each city we traveled had its own special beauty, significance, and magnificence. I was in awe everywhere. But what won my heart were the people from Empoli with their outpouring of love and welcome to perfect strangers. I felt like I had been loved before I even arrived. I am so grateful that there was this wonderful human connection on a trip that was a whirlwind. Thank you for arranging this opportunity to meet your fellow parishioners, Father Mattia. It was a beautiful experience and I shall never forget it." At Siena, I immediately noticed all the big hills, which took the whole group a while to get up. But we then visited the Cathedral of St. Mary the Assumption, and it is a beautiful church with such amazing floor art, sculptures, and even images of the popes lining the place. Afterwards, we went on a brief tour led by Father Mattia, and ended up at the main square where they do annual horse races, which would have been fun to see. After the tour, we went to the Basilica Cateriniano di San Domenico, which already looked beautiful, but was more beautiful on the inside, particularly with the main chapel's stained glass windows, one of my favorite kinds of art forms. We then got back on the road to go to lunch in the Montepulciano region. And a special part for this lunch was that it started like a wine tasting event, where we tried 3 different red wines. For lunch itself, we had meats and cheeses, spaghetti pasta, assorted meats, which was chicken, pork, and sausage with potatoes, and a biscotti with the dessert wine. And the restaurant even had a beautiful valley view. After some time, we were on the road again and left to go to Rome. We then arrived in Rome at the Black Hotel. Thank goodness it wasn't the White Hotel. And found a restaurant in the lobby. There, we had a Toscana Rosso, a nice juicy red wine with a spice kick at the end. And for dinner, we had kebab, couscous, I wasn't quite sure, and onions, along with a creme flan for dessert. So once again, we were served breakfast by the hotel. And for the first night in Rome, it honestly wasn't the best night's sleep for me. Today, we went into the Roman catacombs. Now, while I was unable to take pictures inside, the tour there was both exciting and terrifying. Think about it. Dozens of feet below the surface, maybe a lantern or 2 for light, carrying dead bodies to burial. I'm not gonna lie, it seems kind of scary to be down there. Afterwards, we went to the main city of Rome, seeing some of Rome's history and going to the Holy Stairs, the steps of Pilate from Jesus' trial in Jerusalem, followed by the cathedrals of John the Baptist and Evangelist. Yes, it's really called that. Where there are absolutely gorgeous artworks on the ceiling, and even statues of the 12 apostles lining the main area. Afterwards, we all went our separate ways for lunch, with a good majority of us ending up at a pizzeria, which does serve more than just pizza. There, I had a lovely ravioli con ricotta e spinaci, which is ricotta cheese and spinach. After lunch, we split the group, as we had been out in the sun all day, and there was still a service planned, but a number of us definitely needed some sleep and relaxation. So, half of us went back to the hotel for some R&R. And I'll be honest, I was part of that. I definitely needed to recharge my batteries. For dinner that night, we had a Rosso Vendemmia wine with dinner, which consisted of schiacciata, which is basically just pizza crust, rigatoni, beef stew with green beans, and riscotta for dessert. And everything, like I've said many times before, was delicious. So, today was definitely an event. We spent the morning in the Vatican for a special 10:30 Mass, where we got to see the newly appointed Pope Leo XIV. Only one problem with that, though. It was in 85-degree weather with no shade for any of the patrons. Yet still, Mass was a fun time. And I exaggerate nothing when I say that St. Peter's Square in the Vatican was packed. We then went to a special lunch that served us a delightful white wine, along with being served meats, salad, bruschetta, arancini, which is rice made, and crocchette, which is pasta made. 3 different types of pizza, and pastry for dessert. Afterwards, we had a short tour of Rome, seeing the ancient parts of the city, along with the Colosseum. And the best part was that we were learning a lot of cool and interesting facts about the structure, its history, and entertainment value. Later for dinner, we had bread and cheese soup, sformato, pork with grilled zucchini, and sponge cake. Along with the same wine as last night, I'll be honest. So, still in Rome, and we went back to the Vatican today. Our first stop was at Santa Maria Maggiore, which had multiple chapels, wonderful sculptures, and fun paintings. Though, we honestly didn't spend too much time there. After that, we went to see the Vatican Museum. This place is massive, with such beautiful artworks, many of which were decapitated sculptures. And it was a lot of fun seeing sculptures, paintings, and tapestries. One of which is this, which depicts the resurrection, and must have been made by wizards or something, because Jesus will always be facing you no matter what angle you look at it from. Now, I should have taken a video of this, so I do apologize for that. Then, we went into the Sistine Chapel itself. Yeah, that was actually kind of crazy to know that it was part of the museum. And while any and all photos are forbidden there are some cool photos online. But I'm being honest, they don't compare to the actual place. So I'd recommend going yourself to experience it in person. And sadly, it overloaded my art appreciation for the day and made me brainlessly walk by all the other art pieces afterwards. After the museum, we went to lunch on our own again, where I found a nice small restaurant with a friend, and we had limoncello spritzes and margarita pizza, which in America is just plain cheese pizza, along with gelatos afterwards. We all then got onto the road again to go for dinner, where I volunteered as a special guest chef to try a cooking method. And I'll be honest, it was fun, and the food we made was served to the entire group. Plus, there was good music during our time there, most of which you've actually been listening to in this video. And what we had for dinner was meats and cheeses, crocchette, pasta with crunchy chicken, which is the dish that I helped make, pork with potatoes and salad, and a specially made cake afterwards. And everything was so delicious. And I'm so glad that we had this special experience for the end of our trip.
So, this is the final day, guys. I don't really know what to say. This trip has been a lot of fun. Had a lot of great experiences here. But, like they always say, all good things must come to an end. I just didn't expect it to come to an end so quickly. And I kind of wish it could last longer.
So this was our last day in Italy, and boy did it start early. We went to St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, going into the crypt church where most of the popes are buried, and we had mass there. And I'll be honest, it was quite an experience. Afterwards, we had a bit of a brunch, which felt very American in terms of the food. But then again, say it with me, Italy doesn't really do breakfast right. So these restaurants doing this kind of thing for American tourists was actually pretty interesting. Afterwards, some of the group went back to the hotel, while the rest of us went around Rome, with this part of the group going on a bit of a tour in some areas, including the Roman Pantheon building, and the tour finished with gelatos. We then had one last stop for the day, visiting the church where St. Paul was beheaded. Okay, it was more tranquil and calming than it sounds. It was actually a lot of fun there for me, because I was there admiring the architecture.
It was the whole experience. I loved the variety every day. I loved all the churches we visited. I loved all the masses and the unique locations. I loved all the food. I loved all the sightseeing. So just all in all, it was just an awesome trip that can't be replicated.
We were then on the road again to go back to the hotel to finish packing all of our stuff, with a small dinner and dessert being served by the hotel, and have a quick nap before we have to leave very early tomorrow.
And here we are. Today's the day. We're going to be taking off soon. I'll be honest, I did not want this to end. I knew it would. I just didn't think it'd be this soon. But this was a very fun time. I definitely had a lot of fun for this.